Critical updates right now with Ukraine and Russia. I'm going to give you all the information you need to know and jam pack it in. The first thing I want to look at is who stands to gain from what's happening here, as well as who stands to lose from it all. And I will give you that geopolitically. I'm going to show you the companies involved and so much more. I've got maps, I've got charts, I've got articles. The next aspect is both the geopolitical side and financial. I'm going to show you a lot of information surrounding this. And the third thing is basically what to look for next. And there's something going on in Southeast Asia that we must not take our eyes off. All of that and more. You came here for the truth. Let's get into this. Who is ready to fight alongside us? The head of state in Ukraine is basically saying, look, we need some help. You've got to help. And of course, the suggestion here is that the capital city could be taken in 96 hours. This, along with everything else that I am showing you here, is not my opinion. I'm not putting my slant on it. I'm giving you the data from all different sources. And I just want to show that to you. If you want to read any of these sources, down in the description, it's all there. Okay, now let's get into what I need to cover. Most importantly, right now, right at the front, I want to talk about who is exposed. European banks are the world's most exposed to Russia, especially those in France, Italy, and Spain, which far outstrips the US banks' exposure. Hold that thought because towards the very end of this episode, I'm going to show you something underneath all of this, and it's not so linear, so stick with me, okay? This is coming from the Biz, and they basically say that, look, you've got the exposure from Europe, but at the same time, when you impose sanctions on a country, it has a blowback effect, okay? Talking about those sanctions here, and they say the European Union is unlikely at this stage to take steps to cut Russia off from the SWIFT system. And if they were to do that, it would be detrimental. So they don't want to do that yet. They're going to let them do what they wish, I guess, and not step in. We will see. One of the banks that they mention in here, among others, you could look at Deutsche Bank and so on, RBI. Keep keep that in the back of your head for now. Russia, Ukraine outperformers indirect exposure. Looking at this right now, this one, I believe the next one is from JP Morgan, and they put this together, broken down by the sector as well as a different company, energy, materials, industrials. You look at the names on the list, it's who you might expect. ExxonMobil, Pioneer, you go down the list. You also have different companies like Alcoa, Lockheed Martin, a big one, obviously. And it goes through. It shows you the different companies. It shows you, the different stats surrounding them. I'm not going to read you the whole thing. It's going to put you to sleep. That's one. Like I said, any sources will be in the description. Exposures to Russia are small and largely manageable within the group context, with only RBI having a double-digit exposure. So if something serious is happening, this is one company that could be impacted negatively. Exposures to Ukraine are even more marginal in the group context. Again, RBI having the largest exposure. It just gets into that loans and equity and so on, okay? That's important. So they're trying to say there isn't this huge exposure from outside, at least as it relates to Europe and so on. Russia-Ukraine revenue exposure, again, broken down by sector. Metals and mining, Kinross, right on here. It goes down into industrials, Delta Airlines, United, and so on. It just goes through. These are the different companies, according to JP Morgan, who are exposed. This gives us a little bit of insight. If you are an investor, if you are interested, these are the type of charts that you can pay attention to. Okay. Like I said, I'm not going to read the whole chart to you. You probably can't see the font is super small. I realize that. All the links in the description here. You can see loan exposure to Russia by creditor geography. Overall of low importance. Here you can see it right now. France, Italy, Australia, and so on. So it goes through there. It is important to follow all of this one by one to see what's happening at this given time. Now, the next thing I want to cover is this map, a very interesting one, because a lot of people, they don't have the knowledge of this particular situation, and it's good to see these things on maps and charts and so on. The area I'm pointing to right here is that conflict zone. This is where most of the action is taking place. So it basically just says right here, by the way, millions of people live in this area. I believe it said 5 million people, but I guess it depends on where we're looking. So apparently, according to this 400,000, 900,000 in these two regions, I believe I had read somewhere about 5 million, but I'm not sure what the exposure was on that. They took over, apparently, Chernobyl. Apparently, I say apparently all the time, there is, some activity happening in the capital of Kiev, and you look at all of this. I don't know what's going to come of this, but I can tell you right now, the tensions are pretty high. This is some, interesting information for you if you want to check it out. Geopolitical risk has risen sharply due to the tensions. This, of course, shows us that there have only been a few instances like this since the year 2000. Okay? We will see what happens, of course. Financial conditions do not consistently tighten following major geopolitical risk events. It just shows you some different events that have happened and then the timing on that. Like it says right here, change in the global financial conditions after Crimea, not a big deal apparently. We'll see. We will see. European natural gas prices, one-day change. This, on the other hand, changes dramatically. And that gives us some insight. Over the last few years, we haven't seen a price increase like this ever. So in this last few years anyway. Natural gas runs through Ukraine. This is another big one. It's coming from Russia right through Ukraine. And that, of course, is trouble when we talk about these pipelines and the demand, and of course, that supply side. If there's disruption, it's going to impact, people in Europe very, very quickly. You look at the credit default swaps in a one-day period. I just showed you yesterday. Already that has increased significantly. These things are basically a bet. When you see credit default swaps going up, it's basically where there's risk. And you can see that being priced in this particular financial instrument right now. The bond yields for Ukraine have gone berserk, as you can see right here. Of course, where there is risk, we should see that going up. And here it is. Looking at, a lot of times these things get, I would say, out of hand because the market doesn't know how to price it. When there's so much chaos and uncertainty, the markets, they don't know what to do and it just goes off the charts. Now, this one is big. This is Zoltan. You remember the so-called bond oracle or the Fed repo oracle? The guy who talks about the repo market operations. He used to work for the New York Fed at the desk. He is well versed on that. He has something to say. $300 billion Russia cash pile can roil money markets. Russia's official reserves understate dollar exposure. Hoard is large enough to substantially shift funding spreads. Russia still has about $300 billion of foreign currency held offshore, enough to disrupt the markets. When flows change, spreads can gap. If things escalate, it's hard not to see a direct impact on FX swaps and the US dollar LIBOR fixings, given Russia's vast financial surpluses and where those surpluses are deployed. So here you can see that red line. That's the Russian treasury holdings. We know they sold off. But the Russian foreign exchange reserves has gone up and up and up and up over the last few years. That's interesting, right? He just basically gets into that. I don't know. I don't know what to expect from it. But what I had to say, which is why I mentioned that at the beginning, was understand that there's a blowback effect. If they start putting sanctions, they basically lock down Russia's cash. That's $300 billion. If they do, the whole top to bottom, that would have an impact on the markets as a whole. So we will see. I'm not sure they can do this and get away with it. If that's the case, where is this all going to lead? What are we dealing with here? This may only be one step of many. So really quickly, a couple points I want to make. This company, Vattenfall, I don't know how to pronounce it. This is a Swedish company, I believe. And essentially, they're saying that they stopped deliveries of Russian nuclear fuel. So they don't want anything to do with this. As a result, the reason I mention this is that the prices of uranium have gone up considerably just in the short period, and the companies involved, their stocks have gone up. Again, more of this bullishness for uranium, whether it's coming from the supply and demand fundamentals or whether it's geopolitical problems. And we've got this vegetable oil rally powers on, adding to food inflation pressure. The reason I mention this is simply that we are seeing the inflationary forces coming from every direction, and commodities have this non-stop growth, it seems. Last but not least, don't take your eyes off this one. Again, the situation with Taiwan has not let up. At a time in which you've got, Ukraine, Russia, this is still happening. Apparently, Taiwan's Air Force scrambled again on Thursday to warn away 9 Chinese aircraft that entered its air defense zone. Same time this is happening, many are worried in Taiwan, are saying, hey, are we next? I don't know. I don't think that's the case, but certainly they look like they want to go in at some point. So we've got a lot happening today, and I want to just give you all that data. I hope you do appreciate it. If you want to support this channel, hit that thumbs up button, okay? That's all I ask. Just click that one button, and when you do so, you notify the algorithm, hey, check this guy out. He's got some good information. All right? I'll see you on the next one. Take care.